Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fort Vancouver Regional Libraries, Words and Pictures. This is the 5th year we've been hosting this free event for the public. It's our 2nd year online, so thank you all for joining us on Zoom. My name is Jamie. I am the experiential learning librarian for Fort Vancouver Regional Libraries, and I'll be hosting, so if you have problems, let me know. Our moderator is Christy Peterson, and she will be leading the conversation. And our speakers are Brian Tashima and Heidi Mason. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you.
Yay. Hi, everybody. I see a lot of familiar names, so I really appreciate you all popping back in for this session. I specifically wanted to have a panel right after Kelly's presentation. She did a really fantastic job, and I wanted to have the opportunity to talk to a couple more writers with some more experiences, some different experiences, so that we could talk more nitty gritty, specific things to do, and what things that people have tried that have maybe worked or not worked. The other difference is Heidi has worked with a company that is a traditional publisher, but does things in a slightly different way than maybe some of the big five do. And Brian has self-published his work. And so I think they bring some of different angles of publishing into their ideas about marketing and social media. And so I just wanted to bring some different perspectives. So I'm going to let each Brian and Heidi introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their work, and then we'll jump into the conversation. Heidi, you want to get us started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Heidi Mason. I am the author of 10 books. 2 of which are yet to be published. I have one coming out next month and one that is still in the submissions process. So got to see if they like it or not. I write under 2 different pen names in 2 different genres. I write supernatural suspense under the name H.R. Mason, and I write women's fiction / several different subgenres of romance under Heidi Renee Mason. I am married. I have 3 daughters, and 2 of which are grown, and I homeschool the youngest one. So that all keeps me nice and busy.
All right. Thank you, Heidi. Go ahead, Brian.
Hi, yeah, good morning. I'm Brian Tashima. I'm the author of the Joel Suzuki series, which is a young adult series of science fiction fantasy novels about a teenage boy who travels to a world where music is magic and autism is kind of a superpower. It's the source of his powers, the source of his magic. I have, there's 5 books in the series that are out so far. 11 are planned in all, if I make it that far. The 6th one is currently, I just finished the first draft and hope to get that to my editor soon. I'm also the lead writer of a manga-style comic book series called Glorified, of which we have 4 issues out so far. We're working on the 5th one. And I also I play guitar and sing in a band called Second Player Score. And we have a bunch of other projects that we do. We have like a podcast, and I've written some film and television scripts that I've tried to shop around, and so yeah, so that's my story.
So I was gonna jump back to Heidi, and then Brian again. Can you talk a little bit about the experience of, like, I know some of the answers to this question, but I know the audience wants what's your experience specifically with the publisher that you're working with? How much do they do for you, and how much do you do on your own? And so what types of marketing activities specifically has your publisher done for you?
Okay. So my publisher, they're probably, I would say, like a mid-sized publisher. So I have a lot more say, I think, in how my books are presented than I would with a larger publisher, which I actually really love. They are great as far as marketing and promotions. They actually have a separate branch that is specifically for promotion. So they do a lot of promotion for me. They set my book, like when I have a new release, they set it up on for book tours that go, lots of different places that I don't even know where they go. They do a ton of marketing on their own Facebook, Instagram, all their social media channels. So they reach people that I would never reach. They do big promotions. Of course, they have a newsletter that has a ton of subscribers. But they also do the really big promotions. Specifically, the one that's been the most successful for me is BookBub. It's very expensive and it's very difficult to be approved for. But my last two suspense novels, they've done a BookBub for, and it's done really, really well. I know they're very expensive, but they piggyback marketing and promotion with other sites at the same time that that's happening. So it's just kind of like this massive explosion of my book on all of these different channels and, places that I wouldn't even know to reach on my own. So they actually do a lot for me. Now, I do still do a lot on my own because on the flip side of that, I reach people that they wouldn't. And so they kind of take a bigger approach, and I feel like I dial it down into like a more personal approach. So I reach people probably a little more organically than there's a very specific and very targeted.
Okay, thank you. And Brian, I know that your work is self-published, and so how do you, I know that you have some stuff in your background that helps a little bit with this. Can you talk about your approach to marketing with your books and how you've used maybe experiences that you've had in other places to figure out how you're going to market and what you're going to do?
Yeah, I guess one of the major reasons I decided to do self-publishing or independent publishing is because I had some experience in kind of entrepreneurship, self-promotion prior to starting writing these books. I was actually when I used to live in Hawaii, I had a like an independent record label. This is coming from my musician background, where we signed our friends' bands, and we put out their CDs, along with my own band's music, and we did a lot of self-promotion in that way. So I think that was kind of the background experience that I brought to this, to applying it to to my books. And so I think the thing that I liked about it is kind of I mean, I'm sort of a control freak, so being an independent publisher allows you to keep maintain control over what what you're doing, and of course, like whatever monies comes in, it's all directly to to you. I guess the downsides are, of course, if you have a publisher doing stuff for you, then they could probably, as Heidi said, reach audiences that maybe you couldn't on your own. So I think there's trade-offs, but so far it's been working out pretty well for me. I just apply a lot of the experience and the lessons that I learned from doing other stuff. I also have I have a business degree, so that comes in handy as well. So.
Okay. So if you, Brian, I'm going to start with you since we've been starting the other way. We'll bounce back around. Can you talk about some of the specific marketing types of activities that you've done, and then speak to, for you personally, like, have there been things that you tried that worked great, or things that you tried that were just completely fizzled? Just kind of talk about the different things that you've tried and how well they've worked or haven't worked.
I have tried just about everything, I have to say. Yeah, I think so over the years, I've been doing this now with the book series for about 9 years now, I think. So I've had the time to try just about everything, and I have found that, yeah, I mean, for me, certain things work better than others. Like I think the one thing that worked the best for me so far is publicity, because with my books, I have that that autism angle to it, and where what I want to do is, and I wrote these books basically for my son, who is autistic, and I wanted to portray a positive angle on autism. Like I don't, I don't shy away from the challenges, but I like to lean into the more positive aspects of being on the autism spectrum. And so I think, especially in the early going, when the book series first started getting going, I would send out press releases, and I actually hired a publicist at one point as well to help me out. And so I ended up getting a lot of media coverage in not only locally. I was in the newspaper and on television, and even like in some national publications. And so that, I think, worked probably the best. Probably second best is doing any kind of like live presentations. I would do a lot of like school talks, presentations to autism groups, and just kind of like even things like this. And those seem to work probably the best. I maintain a blog, which I think has been pretty effective. As far as social media goes, I've tried. I have accounts and everything, like Facebook, Twitter. I have everything, but my blog seemed to have been the most effective. Not necessarily in terms of direct marketing, but more like I would hear from people who had read my blog and were interested in maybe like having me come speak to their group or something like that. And so as far as from a social media standpoint, the blog has been the most effective, I think. And other stuff I've tried as well, but have not been as effective. Like things like I've tried paid advertising. That didn't seem to work out too well for me. Even though I've heard it works for some people, I don't think it was necessarily for appropriate for what I'm doing. But so yeah, in a nutshell, I would say publicity number one, and any kind of live appearances or readings, talks, speakings, things like that.
Can you talk a little bit about how you went about like setting up some of the live stuff? Like, did you send out press releases? How did you, school visits, that kind of thing? How did you get those kind of opportunities to happen?
It's just a lot of reaching out. You kind of have to just not be afraid to kind of put yourself out there. And so I would just kind of I would find out the people who I would need to contact to set these things up. So I would contact like librarians at schools. And one example, I used to have a Skype in the classroom page. So I was doing this whole Skype Zoom thing before Skype was a thing. Like back in 2012, I had a Skype in the classroom page, and actually that was when like teachers would go down, they would look for lesson plans that were interesting to them. And so I would actually get contacted from teachers from that. Even like there's a one teacher in Sweden that we set up a meeting with. That was pretty cool. So it's kind of just a combination, I think, of just reaching out, finding who to contact and just sending them an email. And you're not going to get responses from everybody. Maybe you get like if you get 1 out of 20, maybe that's good, I guess. And also, like I said, like even from my blog, I would get people just approaching me based on something they had seen in my blog. So that's so I think you just got to kind of just keep all the feelers out there, and just don't be afraid of rejection or or not hearing anything back. I think just like anything else, you just got to kind of try anything and see what sticks.
Thanks. I forgot to say at the beginning, but feel free, please, to put in any questions that you have in the chat, because we will fold them into whatever conversation we're having at that point. So you don't have to wait till the end. If you have a question, please go ahead and post it. Heidi, for you, I know that you do a lot of work on social media, but also I know that you've done some reaching out as well to local news outlets and that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you have done that maybe have worked or haven't worked?
Yeah, I feel like kind of like Brian, you just throw it out there and hope that you'll catch something. I feel like I've literally tried everything at least once. Some things more successfully than others, of course. But I do, the majority, of course, is on social media. I try to be pretty active on social media, and not not always just talking about my books, more I feel like giving it a personal angle. I feel like it's kind of like with it's basically sales. If people like you, then they'll also maybe be interested in what you're selling. So I try to be pretty make connections with people outside of just constantly saying, hey, here's my book, buy my book. Because I know, you know, that gets old. People don't always want to hear that. So I try and connect it usually in some way. I'll share, you know, a picture of my writing space or what I'm reading. I love to make book recommendations from other authors that I love. I've done a lot of publicity type things, news, like press releases. I've had newspaper articles, I've magazine articles. I was on TV once, the most terrifying experience of my life. And then I was on a podcast for Coin News. They do like an author's podcast. So I was on that. A lot of my publicity, honestly, comes from my readers in Ohio, because that's where I'm from, tiny little town. And so, you know, I feel like I'm kind of like, they think I'm famous. I'm not, I'm really not, but it's a really small town. So they're actually really great. They put all of my releases in the news, all of the local newspapers, and they're constantly, they're just so supportive. All of the media in my hometown area. So I also do a newsletter, in-person events when that was a thing. It's not really lately, although I do have one coming up next month. But I try and I've done like things where I connect with like local businesses that might have something to do with something that I'm writing about. For instance, when my first book came out, the main character owned a coffee shop. So I reached out to a lot of coffee shops and did like some book signings there, because it's kind of a good tie-in to the book. Also great for them because it gets, you know, people are coming in for, you know, coffee also when they're coming in to look at the books. Let's see. I try and think outside of the box. I also sing. So I like to, I always have a specific song list going for any book at any time. I don't listen to music while I'm writing, but my writing is very influenced by music. So I always have a song list, like a playlist for each book, and I put that out whenever after the book is released. Like this is the, you know, songs inspired by, you know, by the book, or the book inspired by these songs. And then I usually choose one for the last 3 releases I've done. I'm going to do it for the one next month too. I'll choose one of the songs, and my daughter plays guitar, and we have a friend who also plays and sings. So we always get together, we like record a song and release a song that's like, you know, inspired by the book. So I try to think outside of the box as much as possible. And like I said, some things work better than others. Some things don't work at all. I've tried a couple of like the paid Facebook ads. I haven't really had any luck with anything like that. I don't pay for advertisement. The only paid advertisement is done by my publisher. So I've never actually paid for any advertisement. But yeah, I feel like I just kind of try a little bit of everything and see what works. And if it doesn't work, I guess I'm not really out much but my time. So
Can you talk about, I'll just pop over to Brian. Can you talk about, you've talked a little bit about your website. Do you maintain any social media accounts? And if so, do you find those to be helpful to find community at all? Or is that something that you just haven't done as much? So if you could just talk about what role social media plays in your marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I have accounts and everything. I have Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, and you know, I've tried at one point or another, I've tried putting more effort into these, but I think it's important that like you don't have to do it all. Just do what you're comfortable with and what feels natural to you. And for me, I think what ended up happening was, as I said, like my blog ended up being the one social media vehicle that was the most felt the most natural and was the most effective for me, because I think a blog is good because it's as a writer, for one, it keeps you writing on a regular basis. And what I do is I try to do I take a different slant. I not only talk about the book like I said, but you do other things, try to provide kind of entertainment value, I guess. And so I'll not only have status updates on what I'm doing, but I'll have a lot of times I'll write a blog post that has my characters from my books doing something out of book, or out of the story, where like they're talking about a video game or something like that, but I'll be writing it in their character as if they're talking to each other. I also I do things like I like to watch anime, so I'll do like anime reviews and things like that. So I even did occasionally I did something where I did a post where it had if my book was turned into a movie, which actors would I want to play the characters, and that was a pretty popular one. And like I ended up I ran into somebody at an event where they had actually printed out that blog post and wanted to talk to me about it, which is pretty cool. So and again, like I made a connection with an autism group in Idaho, who they were just following my blog, and one decided to reach out to me and invite me. They actually paid for me to go to go talk to their group, and so that was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, I think the blog worked for best for me. I still maintain my Facebook, but it's not. I don't put as much effort into those as I did once. I just kind of mainly focus on the blog. So
someone asked if your blog is a separate entity from your website.
Yeah. My main website is the joelsuzuki.com, where it has just information about the book series and sample chapters and things like that. And my blog is blogspot.com. So it's a separate thing.
Is it all one word?
Yeah. Let me make sure. I haven't looked at the actual title. briantashima.blogspot.com. And of course, I link to each other, but it is a separate thing. Yep, perfect.
All right, I'm going to pop over to Heidi. Heidi, you talked a little bit already about what you do on your social media, but what social media accounts do you actually maintain, and which have you tried any that you didn't like as well? How do you manage that part of your marketing?
Well, social media is kind of a sore subject with me right now. 2 months ago, my Facebook account was hacked. I had a lot of followers. I had spent like 6 or 7 years building it up. And then in August, it was hacked and my password was changed. Everything associated with my account was changed. And it's still operating, but now apparently I'm a gaming site. They have upped my followers. I have like 15,000 followers now on my gaming site. That isn't actually me, but they still use my name and Facebook won't take it down. So that's fun. So over the last couple of months, I've had to start over. So I've built new social media pages. But I think I use everything. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, because it's a huge place for books. It's kind of ridiculous, I think, but it is what it is. You go where the things are. But it's a huge book marketing place right now. There's a whole hashtag, it's book talk, and it's all about books. So I figured it was a good place to try. It's definitely I have the least followers there. It's also the newest. Facebook works really well. I'm also on Twitter. I'm too long-winded for Twitter, so that's not my favorite, not my favorite place to hang out. I have too many things to say, and it's too short. So Facebook and Instagram probably are the two that I use the most. I feel like they work really well for books. You can, say a lot of words and put pretty pictures. So it works really well for books, I think.
I'm curious how your experience on TikTok has been. I'll only honestly, it's my own question because we need to get on TikTok at the bookstore, and
Let's just say if you want to feel old, get on TikTok. If you're not already feeling old, then that's not going to help. No, but it's like I said, I feel like I'm still kind of learning it. There's a definite learning curve. And I mean, I just ask my kids, I'm like, what do I do? So they help me. And I can tell it's definitely not ever going to be a favorite of mine, but gradually I feel I have gotten some followers and some response, but I feel like it's definitely a slower, I feel like you have to work a lot harder to get followers there and for your things to be seen. I'm not sure. I'm, probably just not doing something right, but it's definitely not a favorite of mine. It's okay.
It's been interesting because that definitely is for YA particularly. It sounds like it's kind of the place to be, and I'm like,
yes.
Okay, well, I guess I better figure that out.
Yeah, well, and it's so much of it is making videos, and that's not I don't want to make videos of myself. I'm fine with posting pictures, but I don't want to get on there and talk and make videos. So I feel like if I did that, I would probably have better luck, but I don't. So I think to be successful, you have to be someone who enjoys taking videos of yourself and talking on camera, which is not my favorite thing to do.
Can we segue, like add on to this part of the conversation? And I'm going to ask, because I know some people in the audience are working to be published. And so can you talk about thoughts about using your social media before you have a book out? Because there's a lot of noise out there about, oh, you got to have your platform and you got to have this, that, and the other thing. And do you have thoughts on what you really need to do and what you really don't need to worry about and that kind of thing?
I think it's actually, if you are writing with the thought of being published, I think that it's a good idea to establish that some sort of platform before. I think it's important. It starts to get, even if you can build a little bit of buzz about your book before it's a thing, I think that's beneficial. And most publishers, I know I personally did not have any social media before I published my first book. And it was actually in my contract that I would have. So I think it's a good idea to build that ahead of time because it's going to be a thing that is probably, it's going to be helpful to you. And it's also might be an expectation depending on how or, who you publish with.
Somebody asked, so there's a question about YouTube, which I was going to kick over to Brian in just a second because you talked about doing a little bit of YouTube. But Heidi, how does the playlist concept, how do you incorporate that into your books and how does it link into your marketing?
So pretty much whenever I start writing a new book, I just have a working document that is a playlist, and all that is there's songs that have something to do with either the theme of the book, the feel of the book, the emotions of the book, something about the characters, just songs that kind of play into the book in some way. And every book I've written has one. And it's just a running document that I'll hear a song and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, this has to go on the playlist. And it just kind of overall, creates like the overall feeling of the book. Like if someone listened to this playlist, they would like be in like the right headspace or the right mood or feeling the right emotions in order to really get, dive into the book. And then it's just something that I usually I'll just a month or two after the book is released, I will just do like a little post like, hey, this is the playlist that inspired the book. So it's pretty simple, but it's something that I've done, I think, maybe not with the first couple, but it's something that I've done pretty consistently with most of my books.
Have you gotten reactions from people about?
Oh yeah, people love the playlist. They're like, oh my gosh, these are such great songs, or I'd forgotten about that song, or because I have a pretty eclectic musical taste. So it's fun to try and think of songs that kind of really embody the book. So
that's very cool. So Brian, I'm going to jump over to you. Somebody asked, does anybody here use YouTube, and how do you use that?
I do have a YouTube channel, and I made a bunch of short videos where I had a series of videos where each one was me talking about like each individual book in the series. It was kind of like I had a friend, take a video of me, and we did it sort of like as an interview format. And we also did another video where we got a bunch of kids who were readers of my series, and we had them kind of do an endorsement commercial kind of thing where they would say nice things about my books. And so yeah, it hasn't been, I haven't really been putting in the effort that I think that I need to really kind of nurture it and grow it, but it's there. It's one of the things that I tried, and I probably should be doing more of it. But I also have like a little book trailer that I had made, and yeah, that kind of constitutes my use of YouTube.
And I will say that I think what I've heard, like what Brian and Heidi have really emphasized, and pretty much Kelly talked about, and I think I've seen it for myself and everybody that I really have interacted with that's writing and promoting their work, is that you really need to find what feels most like you. So like Heidi doing the playlist is like, I know Heidi, so I know that's a very her thing to do, and it's super fun, and it comes off as really authentic because that's just part of who she is. And I know Brian has done, we haven't talked about it yet, but I know he's done some like launch parties and stuff that involved live music. And so I think that the really important thing is you don't have to do everything, and you should try different things, but in the end really be focusing on the things that feel the most like you and that you are able to maintain because you actually enjoy them, instead of making yourself get on, say you really don't like Twitter and you're getting on Twitter every day and you're just like, I hate Twitter. Well, I mean, it's just probably not going to be as effective just because you don't really care for it, and it's kind of an effort to make yourself do it. Whereas the stuff that just feels like fun, or that you're going to get on and do anyway because you enjoy it, is ultimately probably going to be the better way to approach it. You both have websites. How often do you update those? Because I know mine is sitting there, probably hasn't been updated in 6 months.
Not as often as I should. I try and do it before at least make sure that the current book information is on there. But I should probably do it much more frequently than that.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Brian, sorry.
I just update it when a new book comes out. But yeah, I also should be doing more as well.
What role do you think your website plays in all your overall marketing and publicity?
I think it's a good place for people to start. I think you can go a little more in depth and explain. I know for me, writing under two different pen names is interesting because some people know about one, but maybe not the other. So I feel like my website is a good place that I can kind of explain both. Like if you're looking for this, then this is what you're after. So I feel like it's, everything is kind of all laid out in one place. And so that makes it easy for people to kind of figure out what you're all about.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, it's just kind of a reference tool where you can direct people who, may not know anything about your books and say, oh, okay, well, you can check out, my website at joelsuzuki.com. And it's kind of more like it's a static reference as opposed to kind of an ongoing marketing thing, which is like, again, my blog is more of my ongoing marketing thing. I update it once a week. And so that's where everything kind of directs to. My Facebook page has gotten to the point where the only time I update my Facebook page is when I say I have a new blog post out.
Let's see. I hadn't thought about this yet, but I know this comes up for people. Do you maintain LinkedIn pages? And if yes, why? And if no, why not? I know that one's kind of I see some writers on it and some not. So
I have one that has probably not been looked at for, I don't know, maybe since 2016 when I set it up. So that would be a no for me. It exists, but I don't do anything with it.
Same here. I have a LinkedIn presence. I have had a couple of contact with, mostly like with industry people. That's kind of more what it's for, as opposed to like connecting with readers. It's more just kind of connecting with industry folks. I actually have a friend who's in a band, and he uses LinkedIn as his primary marketing tool for his band. And it's been like incredibly successful. I don't know how. I mean, I have no idea. But yeah, I just have a presence that I don't do a lot with it.
yeah, and I am the same way. I occasionally go out and like, oh, well, I haven't put books on here for 2 years. I should probably update it. But I do know that people use that, especially if you're doing any kind of stuff. It's not a place where you would go to market your books, but if you do any kind of work for hire, if you do any kind of school visits, if you do any kind of like events, or I mean that's another thing to try. It's the same kind of thing as anything else. You get on it, you experiment with it, you try it. If it's effective for you, great, because it is for some people. If it's not, then I mean, like I said, mine's out there. It's I probably should just erase it because it's not updated. But go ahead, Donna.
I'm sorry, what link are you talking about?
It's called LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, the business one.
Yeah, and it is more of an industry professional type site rather than a place that readers are going to go. So it's not typically talked about in a marketing suite, but it is kind of part of your online presence if you do want to use it. So it's just something to think about. And honestly, does anybody have any questions that are specific to the type of work that they are doing? Because we've covered some broad topics, but my next question was going to be, advice about marketing your work, but it might be interesting if anybody has any questions specifically about the work that they're doing, that Heidi and Brian could maybe speak to more specifics. If anybody wants to post anything or anybody wants to pop in with questions, that would be awesome. And I will just go ahead and start with Heidi. If you have just general advice for people about marketing in general, keeping true to yourself while you're trying to market and that kind of thing, that would be great.
I don't know. I think the most important thing that I've learned is when I first started, like I said, I had no social media. So I jumped in and I tried to do everything, like all the things. If there was a thing, I tried to do it because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And I think the best advice is kind of what we've already said, is that really find the thing that works for you, because you don't have to do everything. it's better to do a couple of things and do them really well than to try and tackle everything. And I feel like people can tell if you're being authentic, if you're enjoying what you're doing, and people are going to connect with you a lot more if they feel that okay, this is something that she's actually really enjoying, versus something that you're doing just for the sake of doing it. So I think find the thing that feels natural and comfortable for you, and then really try and run with that, because I think that's where you end up being the most successful. And also don't be afraid to try things that you haven't tried before. Try all the things and then dial it into the ones that feel the most comfortable for you.
Brian, did you have anything that you could add to that?
Oh, yeah, and I guess along the lines of, just being true to yourself, I think, one thing that I try to incorporate into all my, marketing and promotion activities is I try to approach it from the standpoint of, like, I know some people, or it's easy to be kind of uncomfortable with, with selling, if you think of it as selling, or you're like marketing yourself kind of thing. But I think the attitude that I bring to it is that I'm trying to actually, like, help make the world a more positive place, I guess, like through my work. That's kind of the attitude I take to it, where it's like for one thing I do is I donate $1 for every book I sell to Autism Empowerment, which is the nonprofit organization that I work with. The more books I sell, the more money I donate to the organization. And I just kind of, I look at it from that point of view, which is where, like, the message behind my book, which is, taking a positive approach to, to autism, or, looking at it through a positive lens, and, trying to, I guess, provide a source of inspiration to, to kids who may be on the spectrum, and to give them sort of a literary hero that, they can, relate to and get a sense of empowerment from. I kind of look at it from that perspective, where I'm trying to spread this, this positive message, and trying to do good in the world. And that kind of, if you look at it from that point of view, I think it, then you don't feel as like, oh, I'm just selling. I'm a salesman now, and I think that kind of helps you get the the energy and the inspiration to continue to try to spread the word about what you're doing.
So that leads me to that. I really appreciate that, and I think Heidi too. How do you, like, keep up the energy for it? Because it is easy to slide into feeling like it's sales, and that is kind of, I mean, I don't think any of us feel great about that. So how do you sort of keep that energy going for, letting people know about your work without kind of sliding into that feeling like I'm just selling something?
I think for me, like I said, I try and keep things a little more personal, I guess you would say, on the pages. More things about me and my life and what I do and what I like and what I think and that sort of thing, more than just, yes, the books are woven into into the posts and into the fabric of that, but it's more, I feel like, trying to actually connect with people as a person versus someone trying to sell them something. So for me, I feel like that works the best for me, and it also makes me keep wanting to do it rather than just throwing out book information all the time.
I attended a workshop a while back, and it was somebody who was talking about branding, and we think of that as like big national brands, and they're always trying to sell us their stuff. And she was kind of had a different take on it, that your brand is just you and all those things that you like and the things that you choose to focus on, and that you're building a slice of you on your social media or on your website, and you're not sharing everything with everybody on, you're making deliberate choices about, like, what you're sharing. So, you know, the pieces of your life that you're sharing on social media are very deliberately selected to kind of go with this what you're presenting, but you are still presenting yourself as a whole, not just this book that you want people to buy. And that honestly made it, for me, made the idea of marketing much more palatable, because I was more like, oh, well, I can just have friends on these social medias and I can talk about things that I like. And, you know, I'm curating it still, but, you know, I may not go talk about, you know, the favorite sausage that I just ate, unless that's part of my brand on my social media, but I'm still getting to be me. And that made the whole idea of marketing much more palatable and fun than just like, I've got to go out and sell something, which was kind of like, I don't really want to do that part. So
For me, I've also tried from the very beginning to keep things very positive on my page. I don't post anything that would in any way, shape, or form be negative or stirring the pot on anything or anything controversial. I made a decision when I started that my pages would only be a place for positive interaction. And that's actually taken a lot of the stress out of it for me, because I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do if, you know, I don't like conflict. So I try really hard to post things that are going to only have a positive impact. And that's also very authentic to who I am, because if anyone knows me, that's kind of how I am. I don't like negativity. So I guess that goes back to branding, and that's sort of the spin that I've taken on things. And I know not everybody feels that way, and I think that's great, because that works really well. On the flip side of that, works really well for some people, but that's just not me, and that would not be true to me.
Right. No, and Brian, you were nodding, so go ahead if you had anything to add to that.
Oh no, I just I agree. I mean, I kind of approach it the same way, where you know I try to keep things positive. So yeah, I'm right along the same lines as Heidi.
Yeah. And I know that for a long time, I you know, people have different feelings about whether or not your social media is going to include any kind of activism, advocacy, and whatnot. And I think that you have to, if you decide to do any of that, I do a little, but you have to choose that very carefully. You know, you have to choose, you don't want to just throw up any old controversial thing just because, like, you are building a brand. So if you choose to wade into anything that could be perceived as at all controversial or activism, you have to be very conscious of, like, does this matter to me to the point of, you know, you may alienate some reader. You know, is this important enough? And for me, it's still, is there a positivity aspect to it? You know, is it something that I really care about? So I think everybody has to kind of choose how they fall on that. You know, do I share anything controversial or activism oriented? Do I not? And if I do, like, it needs to be very targeted and very specific to a brand still that fit within the brand that you have. So you have the choice of using your social media presence as you see fit, but you have to be aware that you are making a decision that, you know, may or may not impact sales and that kind of thing. So you want to be super, super careful if you decide to go into any of that.
I think that goes back to just being, you know, true to who you are. And like he said, you know, she's just naturally a positive person. So that's kind of, you know, how she wants to portray herself in her social media. So I think if you decide that you want to be controversial because you think that's going to get attention and, you know, increase your sales, but you don't actually like causing controversy, then you're just gonna, it's like selling your soul to that.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you like that kind of thing and you like getting into fights, then okay.
Yeah. So yeah, everything you do is building that brand, and you need to be aware of that. And so you definitely, when you're building an online presence, you don't want it to just be, any old random thing that you want to post up there. If your brand is posting when you go to restaurants, then feel free to post the food when you go to a restaurant. That is totally fine. But if your brand is something else, but you're sort of kind of posting things that are all over the place, then that might sort of muddy where you are. I know for me, I post a lot about backyard wildlife. That's just been kind of my thing all along. So people expect to see that on my social media. If I suddenly started posting about beer, like every day, I think they would be very confused. So you do want to have thoughts about what am I presenting? And go ahead, Donna.
I was going to say, is that why Kelly said don't respond to critiques, to reviews that are bad reviews and things like that? When she was talking about social media and reviews of books and so on, your books?
Well, she was specifically at that point referring to Goodreads. And yeah, there's been some controversies on Goodreads where authors basically get on and basically have fights with readers about their books, which is really not a good look. Honestly, in general, even though we definitely don't ever read reviews, cough, cough, you don't want to get down that hole. Like you're a professional. And so I think that's the other thing that's really, really important is that any kind of marketing that you're doing, whether it's a press release or whether it's something you're doing on social media or your presence on Goodreads or Amazon or anything like that, you have to present yourself as a professional. And so you don't want to be going down the road of getting into an argument with readers about like, well, you just didn't get it, or whatever.
So Brian and Heidi, have you ever had to deal with, so my question is for Brian and Heidi, have you ever gotten into a situation where readers have said nasty things to you on your stuff, and how have you dealt with it?
You want to go ahead?
Oh, okay, yeah. Now I am actually one of those authors that I read every review. I don't necessarily recommend that unless you've got pretty thick skin. But I do want to know, I read it for my own benefit. Like, okay, so, I'm all for feedback. Is there a way that maybe the point, maybe I was unclear. So I read it, I guess, to make myself better. But that being said, sometimes you read things that you don't necessarily want to hear, and it's hurtful. And yes, I've gotten a couple of reviews where I'm like, what do you mean? But I think you definitely don't ever respond to those. Maybe like call up your friend and vent about it and be like, what I know I've talked to Christy before. I'm like, what do they mean they didn't understand? It was so, yes, I have gotten, a couple of reviews that were not very nice. And a lot of them, I honestly don't seem to have anything to do with the actual story. Sometimes people feel the need to attack you personally, which is fine, I guess. But I just try and take those with a grain of salt. But I do read the reviews because I feel like sometimes there's some good information in there that can actually help me be better. So
yeah, I agree with everything you said. Sometimes bad reviews can give you actually constructive criticism that if you once you get past the initial shock of reading stuff about bad reviews, okay, maybe they have a point here. I approach it where I think just in general, I think all these opinions, anything people say, regardless of whether it has a point or not, they have a right to exist. They have a right to be there. Just like, it's kind of like in negative emotions, you have to not try to suppress it. It's, it's something that's going to just come naturally, but you kind of look at it as kind of like guideposts that kind of be like, okay, it's kind of getting me out of emotional alignment. I need to get back, into the, so you just kind of take it as, like you said, take it, don't take it personally or don't take it too seriously. Just get whatever information you can out of it, and the rest of it, okay, that's fine. They have a right to their opinion, and I'm just gonna go on. And but yeah, like the main thing is that not to respond and not to get into some kind of troll fight or whatever. And so,
well, and I think one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're writing and when you're releasing a book is that it could be the very best book in the whole world. But not everyone's going to think that, right? Everyone comes to, no two people read the same book, right? What it means to you is not what it's going to mean to me. And that doesn't make it, that's not a bad thing. You just have to kind of remember, okay, my books aren't for everyone. Not like everyone's not going to love them, and that's okay. And the more you can remind yourself of that, the easier those nasty reviews are to read.
it's very true. I actually, I had a
Well, fortunately for me,
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to say, like, when Heidi was saying that not every your book may not be for everyone. I had a review once where it was a negative review, and they said, the book read like it was like a video game. You just went from one quest to another, and like racking up experience points, and lose a heart, gain another heart. I'm like, that's exactly what I was trying to do.
Like, you got it.
No, what I was going to add is that actually I sold real estate for any number of years. So I actually have a lot of experience with no, and rejection. So I probably have a very thick skin to go into writing with. And no's don't hurt me so much, but writing is very near and dear to my heart. So it's like I equate it to having a child and putting it out there, and it being very personal, and it is a little bit different to get someone smacking around your child. It is a little bit more personal to you than just being told, no, I don't like your house or whatever.
No,
So that's
I
my
actually
concern.
think that's a really good point, because it is a piece of you that you're putting out there. And so you do have to go into it knowing that it's a business, and some people are going to like what you have for sale and some people aren't. And a lot of people equate liking something with whether it's good or not, and don't have the ability to say, oh, well, I don't like this, but somebody else probably does. It's, I because I read so many books and stuff just for the different kinds of roles that I play, you develop the ability to say, the writing is really good in this book, I don't care for it. That you can recognize that it's a quality book with a good plot, and you just don't like it. But not everybody that reads or reviews your book is going to bring that level of awareness to it. They're going to just say, well, this book was terrible, and maybe it's not terrible, maybe they just didn't like it. So, but there definitely is, I think you have to be cognizant of that. There's been stuff that I've written that I have not put out in the world because it is too personal, and I don't want it to get eaten up by people. And so you do have to be aware that once you cross that bridge of putting your work out there for other people to sell, it becomes a commodity that people are going to buy and people are going to interact with in different ways. And that's a different experience than just writing it for yourself. So anybody else have any last minute stuff to add? We're a little bit over, but we can, if you had any, Heidi or Brian, if you had anything to close out with.
No, just my final thought is, which is why I would never write a personal memoir. Never. But I wanted to thank everybody for all this wonderful information. Thank you very much. I appreciate it greatly.
Well, thanks for listening.
Jamie, I'm gonna let you jump back on here.
Yep. thank you everybody for coming. Thank you so much to Heidi and Brian for your time and sharing your expertise with us. Thank you, Christy, for moderating. We do have some more sessions this afternoon, so check back on your schedule. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.